Hi, this is Mark Wahlstrom, and you are watching Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast of the Legal Broadcast Network. Well, today we're mixing things up a little bit, changing pace. I'm not in the studio today, as you can see, but we do have one of our regular commentators and one of our guests is here in Scottsdale. John Dare is here, and he's going to be hosting a really fascinating segment, and it's going to be on the topic of impaired risk and medical underwriting. It is an interesting case that he's going to be interviewing some unique and some exciting guests, one of whom is Rosemary Brindamore, who is the chief medical underwriter for John Hancock, who evaluates a lot of the impaired risks, and then Robert Cheval, who is with the Life Expectancy Project. And they're going to be talking about a really interesting, intriguing, and really tragic case and how it relates to impaired underwriting. So just bring me right into the studio here. John, how are you doing today?
Greetings, Mark. Hope you're doing. It sounds like you're doing well out there. We're holding down the fort here in the studio. We've got a great show, as you mentioned. We're going to be talking about rated ages and impaired risk underwriting. It's a topic that is of great, I believe, should be of great interest and importance to judges, adjusters, attorneys, and also other members of the structured settlement profession. We're going to be bringing in a couple of very exciting guests in part 2 of our segment, but our initial segment we're going to talk about the basics of rated ages, and I flip it back to you.
John, what exactly, let's not assume any degree of knowledge here. We don't want to talk down to our audience, but what exactly is a rated age, and how does it work, and how is it used in a structured settlement case?
The difference between a rated age and a natural age is that the rated age is determined by a medical underwriter after review of an annuitant's medical records. So for example, you take someone who is 40 years old, male, and based on the mortality tables, that individual is expected to live another, for example, say 37 years. But then you take the medical information from that individual, the impaired risk, if you will, and the medical underwriter reviews their medicals and then says, you know what, we believe that this person has the life expectancy of a 50-year-old. And so they will give them a rated age of 50. And that rated age will then be able to be used to price the annuity or qualified funding asset that funds that particular structured settlement.
Okay, John, when you look at a rated age, and we go through this, and we talked about what it is, and you've touched on it a little bit, but how exactly does it impact pricing? And to whom does it benefit? Does it benefit the plaintiff? Does it benefit the defendant? Just get into the pricing aspect of that just a little bit, if you could.
Yes, of course the rated age affects the pricing of a structured settlement annuity. And the rated age pricing is because, for example, as I mentioned, if you have someone who is 40 years old and is given a rated age of 50, one can use the pricing tables for a 50-year-old. A 50-year-old is expected to live another 27 years as opposed to 30 years, and therefore the annuity should be less expensive. Now, who benefits from this? I would submit to you that whether you're a plaintiff or defendant, you can potentially benefit from this. If you are a plaintiff and you know how much you're going to put into a structure, having a rated age, if you're going to pay lifetime benefits, is going to boost your yield. Now again, it's important, let's rewind. If rated age only impacts lifetime benefits, it does not affect period certain benefits or guaranteed lump sum benefits. It only affects life contingent benefits, life contingent lump sums, or primarily life contingent monthly, annually, quarterly annuity payments. So it does benefit the plaintiff. It helps boost their yield. But where does it benefit the defendant? Well, it does benefit the defendant. For example, if you are in New York and you're evaluating a 50B judgment. If somebody has a rated age, it's going to affect the cost of funding that judgment in a positive way for a defendant. That's one example. When you're dealing with a Medicare set-aside trust, a good rated age is going to impact the cost of the Medicare set-aside arrangement. A high rated age will reduce the cost of a Medicare set-aside arrangement. So those are just a couple of examples where rated ages are going to increase or give you some better leverage on a particular structured settlement case.
Well, John, one of the things we talked about off camera when you and I were discussing this particular segment is that one of the biggest mistakes that attorneys typically make is they tend to pre-underwrite or prejudge the case because they don't see anything in the accident or cause of action that might cause an impaired risk. Would you agree, because I know you've seen it in your own practice, but there's a lot of other medical conditions that may be existent in the annuitant or the person who's being underwritten that are unrelated to the action that would in fact allow for impaired risk underwriting. Could you go into that a little bit?
That's absolutely right, Mark. The medical information that's used to determine a rated age need not be related to the claim being filed. It need not be related to a workers' compensation case if that's the case, or a liability case if that's the case. So for example, if you have someone who injures themselves on a construction site and hurts their back, they may be obese, they may be heavy smokers, they may be diabetic, they may have had a stroke or a heart condition or whatever. We can use all that information to determine what a rated age is, or the medical underwriters can use that information to determine a rated age. What is unfortunate sometimes is that some plaintiff attorneys pre-underwrite their clients, and it's a huge mistake because we really insist on getting some medical information. It's possible that even some small thing could make a difference of 3 or 4 or 5 years, and that can make a big difference on whether your client, if you're a plaintiff attorney, whether your client gets a better yield on the settlement dollars that are available that are going into the structure. So please don't ignore the fact that your client may have a rated age, and a skilled structured settlement professional should be able to help you weed through the volumes of medical information you have and to help you determine which is the most important to determine the best possible rated age. Generally, the information that is the most valuable is the information, discharge summaries, and information that's within the last 2 years. The more recent, the better, because the underwriters want to see how a person has progressed. If somebody has a particular condition that is something that could be horrific at the beginning, but their condition might improve, and they may want to see what level of improvement that they have.
Well, John, this has been a nice change of pace, me not being in the studio, you being in. Look forward to seeing that interview with Rosemary Brindamore and Robert Chevelle. Thanks for being in the studio this week, and thanks for watching Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast of the Legal Broadcast Network.